You know, there is an awful thing about recording fitness videos. Oh my God. Twice now, I have recorded videos where I've been working out and just dying, like 50 minutes long. I get to the end, they feel amazing. And then I look over and I notice the record button is gray. Now, if you don't use OBS, that means nothing to you possibly, but it's blue when you're recording, not gray. And I realized that entire time I was basically talking to myself. Like, don't get me wrong, I know when I talk about certain topics, I'm gonna get 0 views, right? Like, I'm literally talking to myself, but I'm making it extra silly because I'm also uploading it onto the internet, where someday, I'll be dead and somebody's gonna happen across it and realize, oh, this poor man, he wasted his life making a video that nobody saw. It's but this time we are recording. Today is going to be a few things. The first is me trying to edit out all the times that I burp because I've just terrible digestive system. My body's wrecked from stress from when I was younger, which is sort of the impetus for a lot of these videos that I'm trying to make. Is I want you to be less stressed because I already know what it can do to your body. Kind of tangentially to that, what we're going to be talking about today is threefold. The first we're going to talk about is working out while older, and we'll do that while we're working out in a moment here. The next thing will be the sort of my take on hustle culture. I want this to be the start of a series of me talking about sort of what we learn from certain facets of modern society, or at least what I feel like I'm learning. Whether or not I'm accurate, who knows? And I don't know if I said 3 things. I guess the third thing is working out. Okay, we are going to actually do it in the order that it is intended, or at least close to it. We may be switching the second superset and the third one. So we'll be starting with front squats. I'm getting older, man. My mind is just wiping out. We're gonna do front squats here. I'll get this set up in a moment, and lat pull downs over there. Mostly because then I won't have to adjust the camera much at all, which is great for YouTube. YouTube loves when videos are static. Just chef's kiss. So let's get started. I used to clear out my gym area when I was done working out, and I had this philosophy that the workout isn't over until you have cleaned up the gym. I think that is a pretty good mindset to have in general. Definitely, if you're going to a public gym, don't be rude, which is actually kind of a pointless thing to say because most of the gym people I've met have been very sweet people, very supportive, trying their best to make a welcoming environment, or they're terribly vain and don't even know you exist, which is also pretty good. The only thing that gym people were bad at in that regard was putting away their towels, because one of the ways that they would show you that they were using something is they would put a towel on it, and then they would promptly forget that they put a towel on it and walk away. And you being the polite person that you are, it was like going to an arcade in the 90s, for anyone that's old enough to remember that, where people put quarters on the thing to hold their place, which people did not steal your quarters. It's astounding to me how in every generation, most people are pretty chill. Like, they don't go around stealing stuff from you or assaulting you or whatever. But I digress. 2 levels down. At my gym, I don't do that. I don't clean up before anymore. And you might hear my breath kind of picking up. By moving weights around, picking things up, getting down, changing angles and stuff, and sort of working my body, I'm actually getting a warm-up going before I get into my actual warm-up sets. So it's a really nice way to sort of get a freebie, and yeah, you take those where you can get them. I adore this, by the way. I don't know if I ever uploaded the video where I put this peg here and set up these bars, but oh, it's been so nice. It's been so nice. So yeah, my back popped and reminded me of our first discussion. It's something that's sometimes a bit of a joke. People talk about when you're a kid, you break your arm And you're like, yeah, I'll just go to the doctor and get it fixed, that sort of thing. But the weird thing about getting older, I'm in my mid-30s, a few years away from late 30s, and injuries just persist. And worse, these injuries, that's a 10, right? Yeah, because we're just going to do a light set to get warmed up and work on juice in the joints. Injuries persist, and worse, when you go to the doctor, they don't seem to know why. Every time I've gone to the doctor for almost 10 years, if not longer, they've never known what's wrong, ever. They guess, they have me spend hundreds or thousands of dollars in tests, and then they go, I don't know. Or they'll send me to a specialist, and the specialist will go, I don't know. And it leads me to wonder what happened. Why was it when I was a kid, I mean, I know I was going to a military doctor. Why was it when I was younger, no matter how grievous the injury, they would figure it out? The one time that they didn't figure out what my problem was when I tore my knees. And they said, oh, just don't walk on them, which, huh? Like, how's that gonna work? Do I just crawl everywhere? But otherwise, everything. They always figured out everything. And then the moment I turned 18 and got on my own health insurance, nobody's ever known anything. Wait, that's a lie. There's exactly one time. And we're gonna do a quick warm-up set of 5, and then I'll tell you that story. All right, I don't know who farted in here just now, but it was very rude. Yeah, so when we first adopted our cats, one of them got terribly, terribly ill. Artemis, or Moose, if I've shown her in any videos or pictures yet, I don't know. She got terribly, terribly ill. I thought every day she was gonna die. Spoiler alert, she didn't. And it stressed me out so bad that I started throwing up everything, every single thing, even water. And I was very seriously thinking I was gonna die. And we went to an urgent care, because in America you don't go to the emergency room because you will lose all your money. But we went to the urgent care, and I met the chillest doctor I've ever met. And he has me explain to him the problem. And at this point, I've gone like a week with minimal fluids, minimal food. I'm tired, think I'm dying, and so I'm stressed out. And he explains to me, you know, your tummy kind of has something similar to a hiccup. And he says, yeah, I think the lat pull downs are gonna be amazing today. He says, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be right back. And just, I need you to relax for a moment. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. And he leaves. I'm sitting there stressing, exhausted, a little dizzy. He comes in with a plastic cup. He says, okay, I'm gonna give you some instructions here. They're gonna be a little weird, but trust me, he says. I want you to open your mouth and just swing this to the back of your throat. Try not to hit your tongue, as best you can. And he says, after that, tell me how you feel. And so I take this stuff and I try my best. I'm not somebody who's ever really drank alcohol or anything, so I'm not good at chugging. And it hits the back third of my tongue, goes down my throat. Almost instantly, like in a matter of maybe a minute, few minutes, I immediately feel that weird nausea feeling in my stomach go away. Another thing happens, which is I can't move my tongue anymore. Like the whole back of it is just numb, and it felt really funny. And it was kind of this really crystally stuff. I still to this day don't know what it was. I do know it wasn't expensive, whatever it was. And who knows, maybe it was Gatorade, and it was just a crazy psychological response. I doubt it, but who knows? We'll go with that. And he has me take it, and afterwards he's like, so, how do you feel? Feel nauseous at all anymore? And I was just like, no, I feel totally normal. Like, because I wasn't, at this point, when I'm starting to do this throw up stuff, this is even after Artemis is fine. And so I'm not even necessarily stressed about things anymore. I just feel like I'm dying. And suddenly, I feel a-okay. Utterly fine. And he says, there you go. Just, you'll probably want to speak with your physician about anxiety. And basically what had happened was you had put your gut into sort of a loop where, much like hiccups, it just could not stop vomiting. And so now, he says, as long as you don't trigger that same response again, you should be good. And for the most part, he was right. I haven't had a situation like that ever since. I on off have bouts of nausea because I've been an anxious person my whole life. Weirdly, one of the things recently that broke me out of depression, or no, sorry, broke me out of anxiety, but definitely barreled me down into depression, was a few family losses, to which I still have definitely not recovered. But otherwise, that's been pretty good. But besides that incident, I have spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars over the last decade and a half getting nowhere. And it means every time you feel any new discomfort or pain, it's really, really stressful as an adult. Because if you're in Canada or something like that, you could just schedule and you go get checked and the general taxes you're already paying are taking care of it. But in America, we've hidden this insane, absolutely insane healthcare tax on people in their paychecks. People aren't okay with like an $11 tax, but they are totally okay with paying hundreds of dollars as long as it's private, you know? Must be further to the left than I think I am. So it's weird. I don't understand it. And so right now, like, I've got that back pop that I'm dealing with and some slight back pain, and I ask myself, is this a normal injury that'll just go away with time, or is it like a lot of my other injuries where it's just going to get worse, right? What am I going to be like in my mid-40s? Am I going to be basically incapable of operating? I think after this we can get into our working sets. Or am I just fine, and these are passing discomforts that will heal? Because I mean, in 2016, in November, it was one of the worst. We'll try 110 today and see how that goes. It was one of the worst months of my life. Yeah, it was one of the worst months of my life. Not just for the obvious disillusionment caused by certain world affairs, or should I say local affairs in the US, but I had fallen down the stairs in November, and I think it was the second week of November. I had hit my tailbone. And it felt like, not the first day, but the second day onward, it felt like molten lead was being poured down my lower back. Just incredible pain in ways that I struggle to find the words. It's the kind of thing where you stare at a wall and just wonder, like, how does anything survive this? And that went on for years. And I remember going to the doctor, and they looked into it. They did, I think it was an x-ray, it might have been MRI. I can't remember. I know those are very different tests. It's just been, many years now. And I remember the doctor telling me, maybe it'll get better, maybe it won't. That's all we got for you. Backs are like this. And I remember, for the first time in a very long time, walking back to work after that, just crying, just walking down an LA street, just crying. And just realizing, like, I'm trapped in this, and kind of, you know, for a brief moment being semi-religious and wondering if karma is real, kind of asking myself, like, what did I do, right? Like, was I that awful as a child or a teen to bring this on to myself? Oh, that's so much more comfortable than every other way I've been doing front squats. Oh, sorry, the microphone's down there and I'm being so loud. But yeah, so I asked myself, like, you know, what did I do? To basically be stuck in this endless hell, because you just can't escape it. No drugs do anything. It's just, you're in this ever-present nightmare, you know? And I told myself, you know, I don't want this to ever happen again, right? And so you fast forward to 3 years ago, I had my New Year's resolution was simply to feel better. That was it. It wasn't to make money, wasn't to finish a game, wasn't to get fit. It was just to feel better. And then the first month into it is when I tore the tissue in my back. And I thought it was hilarious that I had such a simple ask, and then this happens. And it hurt so bad, just burning all the time. And now it still hurts, but it's at least not constant. It just catches me out of nowhere. Oh yeah, the year prior to that I had hurt my thumbs. Same deal. Or was it the year prior? No. It was when COVID happened is when I hurt my thumbs, because I was supposed to go see the doctor for my hand, and the lockdowns happened around then. Right, so COVID thumbs already had happened. So we fast forward to this, and I'm already dealing with back pain, thumb pain, knee pain, and I was like, okay, I just want to have this year, I'm going to do whatever I can to feel better. And then I throw out my back. Next month, 1 month later, I injure my pelvis. Just searing pain down the back of my leg, in the whole joint area. And I remember laying face down on the gym floor, just laughing. Not because I was happy, but because I had the simplest goal, the simplest ask you can make of life, which is I just want to go 1 year without new pain, without hurting. That's it. And immediately, the moment the year starts, that happens. And so ever since then, whenever any new little thing happens, any soreness or pain, I always have to ask myself, is this nothing? Is it something that'll just go away in a month? Or is this my life now? Like, for instance, I got a tooth I had to get fixed, and the one right beside it, part of the a previous fix, came off. And I went and got it checked. They're like, well, if it gets worse, we can fix it for you. And off and on, it's been painful. And I just think like, well, what happens if they fix that one and then mess up the one next to it again? Kind of the inverse of what just happened. And it's just, or when you get a crown and you're like, is it always gonna hurt? Or will it eventually be something I'll just be used to? Stuff like that, right? As you get older, more and more pains line up. They just build and they build and they build. And you keep wondering when it's gonna stop. And I remember when I was having what turned out to be the last conversation with my dad, that was kind of what he said. He, near the end of the conversation, and it was, I think, the very last thing he said in that phone call was, I don't know if it's the cancer that'll kill me or the diabetes, but I know it'll be one of those things. And then the phone call ended, right? And it's just kind of, there's a 31 year difference between us, and I already feel like this. So that's why I'm in the gym, is if I'm already gonna be hurting and in pain and just feeling like I'm falling apart with no real escape in the matter, none that I'm willing to take, at least, I might as well see how strong I can get in the meantime. And who knows, maybe by the 2030s, this technology, these advancements in biology will really take off, kind of like this nonsense with generative learning did, and maybe I'll be able to reverse a lot of the damage of aging and go back to like early 20s. And I don't even care about looks, right? I mean, I do, but in this instance, I just want that healing factor back. Because if I can get that back, there ain't much in life that I want beyond that. It's the lowest ask, really, is just, in a optimistic sense of the statement, just not feeling anymore. Yeah, so if you're young and you're watching this and you're starting to work out, or you're young and you're not working out yet, I strongly recommend that you do it and you enjoy it while you can, because, especially if you're in the US, apparently, once you start getting hurt, you're going to spend a lot of money to get nowhere. And it's a really paralyzing thing, if I'm being honest. Because you feel like every decision could lead to what Hank Green calls the new normal. And especially for me with like the injury in my leg and stuff, let's say I went to the doctor and convinced them to do surgery to try and fix it. What guarantee do I have that instead of fixing it, they mess up and now I've got pain in both my legs, right? Things that didn't hurt previously now are in pain. Unfortunately, there's no way to get a guarantee on that. And it's weird because if you take your car in to get repaired, then you need to get like the motor fixed, for instance, or let's say your oil changed. You need to get your oil changed, and they give you the car back with flat tires. They can't do that. The dealership will have to fix your tires. But if you go into the doctor and they paralyze your foot or something like that, you might be able to take them to court. But not that those lawsuits are not, as far as I've read or understand, they're not nearly as effective or easy as you might think. And doctors, I shouldn't say doctors, hospitals. Doctors are generally fine people, I'm sure. Hospitals, though, are run by evil, awful people at least the highest levels in the U.S. There's no way around it. And those people have a lot of money and patience, and they will do everything in their power to make it impossible for you to win, right? So you're kind of in this weird position of how much risk do you want to take in life? At least as an American. I don't know about other countries. Ugh, I hate when it taps your neck. Ugh. So yeah, I'm in the unfortunate generation who sees hope on the horizon, but it does make the meantime pretty difficult. And I definitely hope that the general trend of people is for the positive, because it's an uphill battle right now for reasons I discussed in a separate video, the social media one, which, statistically you haven't seen, which is fine, still love you. But basically, we have entire businesses built around basically evil, almost objectively so. Whether they recognize it or not, but they probably do. Which I think is a good transition into something that won't make me cry. Hustle culture. I hesitate to call it a culture because that word is sort of abused now. Let's get this last set in here. I say last, but I have one more after this. Last part of this super set. I will eventually figure out why this wiggles so much. It's kind of annoying. I wonder, do we have an extra push pin? Let's learn together, folks. Any down here? Let's see. That's blocked. We'll see how that does. There's also a spot at the bottom, but I don't think that's gonna work. So we'll see. Hard to say. So yeah, let me grab El Bencho and we'll have a little talk while I cool off here. So like I said, I hesitate to call it a culture just because I think English is taking a beating. As far as languages go, I think it's a hot mess. A lot of empty gestures in lieu of actual progress, which bums me out because I believe there's a lot of good intentions behind it, but it's ultimately, I think, counterproductive towards a lot of very good causes, which maybe we can talk about sometime. I think that will be a much more semi-controversial topic than almost anything else I talk about. But it ultimately comes from a place of, caring, perhaps ignorance. That's the story of my life, really. But that's how you grow, is you talk about things, and if you're wrong on the internet, someone will tell you. Hopefully just not angrily. I mean no disrespect. Whenever I talk about anything, I'm just learning and growing. But yeah, I think hustling is often seen as like this really go-getting, positive thing that is really cool. And, you know, I don't know if there's a guy version of the term or if there's any other gendered versions of it, but the whole, like, you know, boss babe kind of thing, like taking the world by the horns. But I do think it reveals a very awful reality that a lot of us maybe know but aren't willing to admit, either because it directly benefits us or because, I'm stretching if it's not super obvious, or we think it will. It's the old joke of there are no poor people in capitalism. There's just momentarily embarrassed billionaires or something like that. That's a lot of people think that way. They think if they protect the system, they will eventually be rewarded by it. It's just not the case. But, and I apologize whenever I go, I can't stop it when I do these videos. I don't know why. Consider a tacit apology each time I do it. But I think what it reveals is sort of, we'll have to take this in steps, I guess. First we'll do squats. But I'll kind of populate a question for you, Dora the Explorer style. What I want you to do, because I'm going to make the claim here that people avoid things that make them uncomfortable, right? So, or avoid negative things. That's my maybe loaded intro to asking this question, which maybe is cheating. So my question becomes, when somebody is hustling, what are they trying to avoid, right? Feel free to say it to the screen, and hopefully Swiper won't steal it so I can see it after this set, where I don't choke myself again. I almost threw up. Ooh. Keep it on the collarbone, not the neck. I'll take a break for a moment. We'll do the last four in a sec. Whew, wrist's getting tight. So, what are people trying to avoid, right? And I think the answer is basically being preyed upon, not being valued. And I know that might sound like an obvious answer, like, duh. That's the problem we're all dealing with. There's no respect, there's no value in human life, etc., etc. But I think it's something that we kind of overlook, especially depending on your political views. Some people take it more extreme than others, but there's this strict devaluation of labor for a lot of people. And it's a little bit weird when you think about it. So for my last four, I'm going to make this claim, and then I will explain it after I'm done strangling myself with a barbell. You, if you work at any company, specifically a public one, but technically we can make this argument for private ones, you, whether you own stocks or not, are an investor in that company. And I mean literally. And this was known at one time, and it's something that has been eroded away since the mid-'80s probably, maybe a bit earlier. So think about that for a moment, and I'll be right back. Oh. Whoa. Okay. So, OFCAD, tell me, bro, how am I an investor? Well, it's a great question. I appreciate your enthusiasm. We gotta take a break before that next set. You, my friend, are an investor because you are investing a resource into your company and expecting money in return. What do investors do? They invest a resource into the company and they expect a return on their investment. So why then, when you invest in your company, are your returns not growing year over year? Why is it, as a laborer, you are expendable? Have you ever heard of a company using generative learning or some other tool to lay off investors? Have you seen Activision fire 500 of its investors, or whatever the stock equivalent term would be? No. They only do it to one side of their investment team, the labor side. And the thing is, the same truth applies to both ends of this equation. A company does not exist if they have no employees. And by that I mean one that's trying to make something. You could be a patent troll with nobody. But a real business does not exist without employees. Similarly, they do not exist without money. So both of these groups are mission critical, and I would argue beyond the immediate start, equally critical. It doesn't matter how many investors you get a year if you've got no employees, because eventually you'll collapse. Again, outside of scams and other nonsense. People have realized this. They realize they're not valued where they work. They are seen as a resource. And that is a very depressing thing to realize. So, I'm going to posit another question for you. We'll keep this fun. But while I work out here, and yes, you're about to try and figure out what my mindset is on this topic, which is totally unfair. But if I said it in a previous video, you will have a cheat. So, my friends, luckily this is so heavy I can do this without it being dangerous. What separates a good company, a useful company that should exist, from a bad company? I'm going to leave you with that. You've got 10 reps, and however long it takes me to catch my breath to formulate the answer, or at least what you think I think it is. Feel free to tell me what you think as well. Drop my fly trap. Oh, I could have done that slower, but that felt really good. Ooh, that concussion I almost gave myself would not have. Ah, get back up there, friend. Need to catch flies. So have you thought about it? Well, I'm going to give you an example, and we'll go from there. A company is kind of like a car for the purposes of this example. Your car exists to do something that would be difficult or impossible to do on your own, in part because of the way the world is built, but more simply, it just is. You do not drive your car, unless you're, a sociopath or something. You do not drive your car to make exhaust. Exhaust is a byproduct of the reason you own your car. And if you have an electric car, you can just use the example of burning the battery, using up the battery in your car. A good business does not focus on the byproduct. And in my opinion, a byproduct of a business is making money. So what separates a good business from a bad business is whether or not they focus on, in this case like a car, the getting somewhere, the utility of the business, or if they focus on making money, focus on producing exhaust. If they focus on producing exhaust, then I would argue they don't need to exist. In fact, they are actively detrimental. And that is the difference. And so here's the problem with focusing on the exhaust, on the making of money. So making money is, especially, this is only going to be true while we are a single planet species. I would argue that our economy currently is designed as if we were spacefaring, but we are not. I'll go into that further in a moment here. So, we live on a planet with finite resources. Objectively is true. Once we make it to space, we will have arguably infinite resources depending on how fast we can travel. So, we already know that we cannot keep growing our business infinitely merely by making and selling more product. Eventually, you will run out of product to make or to sell. So we know that. The next question becomes, how do we make more money then? Because we can't simply just make more. We eventually run out of things to make. It's the old paperclip problem, if you've ever heard that thought process of a generative AI told to simply make paperclips, right? Eventually they run out of healthy places to get the resources, and eventually they start breaking down people and stuff to make paperclips. So we've run out of extra resources. What do we do next? Well, I should say we've run out of quality resources. So now the next thing we turn to is cheaper resources. So we start to look towards places that have less than optimal hiring strategies, nations that haven't quite got on board with the whole no slavery thing, or do not care about their environment being livable, etc. And so we get our resources from there to keep the costs as low as possible so that we can maximize our profits. If we start to get competition, then we lower our prices to meet or exceed their lower prices, but that also has a limit because eventually you can't lower them anymore. So what do you do now? You've got a product that is the best that you can make it. It's using the cheapest resources that can possibly be used, and you've run out of increasingly suspicious activity that you can do in other countries. Well, the next thing you do is you try to pay your employees less. So now you want to pay your employees less. Well, you can't really do that. It's illegal in some areas, and people get mad in the other places. So, okay, cool, I am in shot. So you lay off a bunch of people, which, going back to the beginning of this story, that is why, while you are an investor, you, unlike the other investors, will be fired. It's because they are trying to keep up with that goal of making more exhaust. And so they fire you as a means to reduce costs further. And so they just hire poor employees, or from places, again, that have looser standards on quality of life and stuff, so that they can keep the exhaust flowing. But the problem is that only lasts for as long as they have inertia, which is what places like Blockbuster learned. Once they lost their inertia, they fell apart and no longer exist. And that's sort of the problem, because if you fire everybody who has enough money to buy your product, you get into a weird position where you expect everyone to pay you, but you refuse to pay anyone. And that just doesn't work. And so what do people do? They write patronizing news articles in corporate-owned newspapers about how Group A or B is killing some industry, when really it's the industries themselves killing themselves. And so, obviously, what do you do about this? How do you get out of this loop of death? Well, if you're one of the billionaires or millionaires, the answer is you don't, because the only way you can keep your lifestyle is by doing those things. But if you're a normal person, you look towards hustling, starting your own business, because then you can create a sustainable enterprise. You can focus, we're going to take a break before that next set. You can take a focus on the car and the commute and not on producing exhaust. And because you don't need to make infinitely more money over the course of forever, you don't need to do any of those things. You don't need to fire your employees. You don't need to acquire resources from shady countries. You don't need to abuse any loopholes. You could do all these things, but the argument I'm making is that you must if you're a public company. It is literally required. And that's the big difference, is in one case, you can choose to do it. In another case, you must do it. And that, to me, is the big momentum. Is more and more people are realizing, now that we're deep into this situation, that they need to work for themselves, or at least for a private company. Because the alternative is guaranteed destruction for whatever business you're working at, while simultaneously knowing you cannot be valued at it because you are actually a hurdle between the business and its goal. You are basically like a catalytic converter or something, reducing all that precious exhaust. And it was kind of easy to hide these things in the 80s or 90s, maybe even part of the 2000s, because industries were spreading out into other countries, becoming multinational corporations and things like that. So they didn't have to do some of the more evil things in order to keep that process that I mentioned going. But now that they've tapped out all of these resources, they have to move on to the next tier. You've just got this graduated list of things that every business must do before it eventually shutters. And you might say to yourself, why would you make a system like this? Why would you make a system where you basically generate more and more money and then eventually close? Like, where Where is the goal of having a company like Sears that sticks around for like a century? I think they're gone now, but they stuck around for like a century. And the answer is there's no mechanism for punishing people who do these things. If you build a company that is unsustainable and you generate, like say you're Zelnick from Take-Two, you generate $72 million this year for yourself, well, what do you do when Take-Two collapses eventually? You stay filthy rich. Maybe you move into a separate company. Many of these CEOs just move from one place to the next after they kind of do whatever amount of destruction they could before they got any kind of kickback, or before they found a young enough alternative company to basically start near the top of the list again. Because they know as well as I do that they have that limited list of things they can do. And so when you're the CEO of, say, Electronic Arts, and you start to hit the bottom of the list of what you're able to do, and you're doing layoffs constantly, you realize your bag of tricks is over. So what do? You move to Unity, and you start there. So eventually, Unity is likely to suffer the same fate, because it's the same kind of person with the same mentality running I believe a public company. I guess I'd have to double check that. If they're private, then you can kind of discount some of what I'm saying. But that's what you do. And so it's all reward, no risk. Which, as somebody who currently works in the gambling industry, it's not how that's supposed to work. Should be high risk, high reward. Low or no risk, no reward. So we'll move on to a proposal I have after this. Oh my gosh. I think all business endeavors should be high risk, high reward, or I should say, the risk should always match the reward. So, if your company's making hundreds of millions of dollars and you hire 300 new employees because you think, oh man, this Web3 thing is going to the moon, and then you're wrong, you should have to forfeit all of your income from that job, either until you break even, or if that's not enough, then you would let go of other people. And you darn well shouldn't get any bonuses until you turn the ship around. Because as it stands, the current philosophy is executives get all the reward when they happen to be right, and they put all the risk on their employees whenever they're wrong. And that's just a silly system. It would also make those sort of executive positions less attractive to, bluntly speaking, stupid people. Because if there was a risk for them being stupid, then they generally wouldn't take those positions, because A, they wouldn't get hired for them, because the rest of the executive team would want somebody smart in the position, and in general they wouldn't want to be on the hook, because I would say it's not just money. If your company does something illicit, you should also be on the hook for that. And if you're not willing to do that, don't run a giant company. open up a small diner, a bookstore, coffee shop, whatever. Something where you're willing to take the risk. Because if you're not willing to take the risk, then you don't deserve the reward. Plus, what's the end result of that? You have more small businesses. That's what everybody wants. It's what patronizing people promise they'll support when they're elected, and so on. But by doing this, you build it into the system. That to me is a win. So it's basically all upsides. But yeah, coming back to it, it's that realization and sort of the inevitable spiral that we're seeing in a ton of industries, even Disney of all things, where people are starting to realize it. And especially with the rise of fast data, people can learn these things quicker than they ever could before. And so you get people who, in a previous generation, would have just been ignorant teens playing DDR at the mall or something, golden days. Now they understand that when they turn 18, they have a choice of either joining in to sort of the spiral or making their own business, which I think is a big part of sort of the rise of influencer culture, which again, using the C word, but it's sort of the most obvious route to achieving that goal, because you only have to strike it, not rich, but you only have to strike it lucky once, and then you're off to the races. You get to be your own person, make your own hours, kind of make your own pay, since it is actually based off the quality of your output, which is not what you'll experience from a job. And it's just everything that people are generally promised if they go into business. Now, a flaw in this whole philosophy is right now, it is basically impossible for anybody to start a physical business, because the sheer cost of things like parking, if you were to buy a building, are so extreme that you really have to get a lot of sales in order to break even. And those sort of things will have to change. I suspect the reason they haven't is because they have no impact on big businesses and they limit competition for big businesses, so it's probably pretty lucrative for them when it comes to lobbying and that sort of stuff. But it may also just be coincidence. However, if you could overcome that hurdle, you'd be doing good. Okay. Oh. All right. Well, that's the whole kit and or caboodle. I wish you well. I hope you have a nice night.